Hello, welcome to YHELPtalk with Sarah. Today we are here with Dr. Kaprece James, founder, president, and CEO of Stella's Girls Incorporated, an international nonprofit discussing women empowerment. Hi, Ms. James, how are you?
Hi, how are you doing?
I'm good. So tell us about yourself and your organization.
Yeah, sure. So I am the founder and CEO of Stella's Girls. We started in 2016 when I was living abroad in Okinawa, Japan. And we started to make sure that women and girls had access to education. We were working with women and girls in Okinawa and doing some work in West Africa. And we were noticing that many of our girls did not have the opportunities and the resources to go to school. So I wanted to answer the call and be able to provide those resources. But a little bit about me personally, I'm from South Carolina. So I'm from Conway, South Carolina. Came up in a very small rural town. I went and graduated from an HBCU, Savannah State University, with a background in political science, and then got my master's in public policy and then all my doctoral work in public policy as well. I didn't know I was going to be doing what I am doing today. I had a vision of being a civil rights attorney, but God had a different path for me. And so my love of policy and my passion working in the community is what guided me here to Stella's Girls. And the number one question I get is, who is Stella? And Stella is my great-grandmother. Is a person I grew up with and cherished, and she always made sure that education was a priority for me. And so she didn't get to finish school, so I wanted to make sure that I kind of lived her legacy of having the education and being able to provide people with education as well.
That's great. I love that. So why is Women's History Month important?
I think Women's History Month is important because it gives us an opportunity to shine light on the women and their contributions to society. You know, oftentimes here in the U.S., we only think about the work done here. But for Stella's Girls, we do work in 7 different countries. So it's an opportunity for us to shine light on women on a global aspect, because there are so many policies and activities and programs and systems that were all developed by women. And because for a very long time, women couldn't be in the forefront, I think Women's History Month gives us that opportunity to give them their flowers. Even though some of them may not be here anymore, we still can highlight those that paved the way for what we're doing today. Because I mean, we look at many of our parents and grandparents, didn't have the opportunity again, to really further their education or further their opportunities. And those that did made a significant impact on the community. So I think it's a great time for us to shine light on them.
And why is it critical for young women to further their education and training?
Well, one of the things is education is something no one can ever take away from you. When you take the opportunity to learn and to explore, you always have an opportunity to reinvent yourself. And what I mean by that is, being a now retired Marine Corps spouse, my goal of wanting to be a civil rights attorney, that shifted a little bit because I married an active duty Marine. And so that meant I moved every 2 to 3 years, but it was my education and certifications and all the trainings that I had that allowed me to keep a job, keep a career, pursue other opportunities every time I moved to a new state, a new country. And so I wouldn't have had those opportunities if I did not have the education and any certifications behind me. So it really does open your eyes and, really helps you think through how to maneuver a little bit. And I think when we don't have it, sometimes people feel that they're very stuck. It's not saying that having the education means you need to go to college and complete college, but you should have some type of certification behind you to keep you employable. Even if you want to be your own boss or you want to work for someone else, you still need some training and some skills behind you to really be able to do that, in addition to your life experiences.
So why do you think young men are encouraged more to pursue a career in STEM than young women?
Ooh, I think that goes back to history, right? When you look at the focus of who could be an engineer, who can be an architect, who can be out on the line working the electricity. The focus was always on the men. It was never on the women. The women's place was in the house to raise families. And so I think that our country, really our countries as a global society, really haven't gotten away from that mindset, even though we think we have. I think sometimes our girls don't feel like they can do the work. And oftentimes our girls are really good. I look at and tell my young people all the time, I probably would have been a great STEM professional, but I was so focused on being a lawyer that I was great in math and science. And most girls are really good in math and science. They think about the human services. We have that nature and nurture in us, right? So I think oftentimes they go to that instead of really thinking about the critical and the design of how we can really impact society through the STEM. So I think it's shifting. I have seen a big shift. Just traveling the globe, everyone is trying to focus more on women and girls in STEM because we bring a different thought to it. But I think it's just a history that has, really plagued us for a while of only a man can do this job. And we know that's not to be the case.
So as a minority, a Black woman, how did you overcome adversity in your life, in your career?
That's an interesting question for me. I would say I was a token, growing up in South Carolina, being a very smart girl. The community sometimes always picks a few. And so I was one of those few that were really immersed into a very diverse culture very young. So I can't really say that I faced a whole lot of adversity growing up because my upbringing was a little bit different. The adversity, I would say, for me was more of thinking what our Black community may have looked like, because I was put in places where a lot of people didn't look like me. And I was comfortable in those spaces. And so it also sometimes changed my thought of what our community looked like and how our community moved. And so it wasn't until I went to college and ended up going to an HBCU full of people that looked like me. It's really when my mindset changed and what our community truly looks like. And so I think the adversity for me is a little bit different in that experience. But I would say the one time that I can think of having workplace adversity was being the only Black female in an organization. I was hired to come in and lead the organization to change. And they let me do all the work and change their organization. And then they wanted to hire a white woman to come in and try to do the work that I implemented. And so I walked through it, worked through it with them, but I also left the organization and started Stella's Girls. And so I took that experience as a learning lesson for me of always being careful and always paying attention to what's happening. That's not going to always be the case for everyone, but I think many Black women sometimes go through that we're used for our talents and our brains because we are the most educated people here on the planet. Science tells us that. Statistics tell us that. But sometimes we have to make sure that we know who we are. And so I think when we do that, it's easier, or I say a little bit easier, to face the adversity. When you truly know who you are and truly know what you want to do, and having an open mind to being able to change and say no to something that may be uncomfortable and walk away from it.
And how can young women learn to advocate for their needs and rights?
I think that reading, right? You have to read and know what your rights are first. If you don't truly know what rights you have as a woman, as a girl, you're not going to really know where to advocate and where to start from. But I think that's the first place of knowing what are your rights, what is available to me. And then when you know that something is available to you and it's actually not being offered to you, you can talk with individuals that are in the advocacy space or in the policy space, or go to trainings and conferences to understand policy, to make sure that you do advocate for yourself. But if it's also for you personally, sometimes it's still that self-development of knowing what looks right. Because many times we have girls that don't know what looks right. You may not know what a healthy relationship looks like. So you don't know how to advocate for having a healthy relationship with your family, with your friends, significant others. But when you actually feel good about something and then you realize you're not feeling well anymore, I think those are the times where you can step up and say, okay, this isn't right. This is how it should be. But if we don't take the time to learn about ourselves and learn about, what should feel good, I think it is a little bit hard to really advocate for ourselves, right? So I think that is probably the best way to tell, young people to advocate for themselves is you got to read, you got to do the research, and you got to dig deep within to really know what's right.
And what advice would you give to young women about overcoming obstacles?
I would say take every obstacle, work through it. I tell people you turn your scars into stars. Sometimes those obstacles lead you to greatness. Facing the obstacles that I faced as working so hard to have a successful career as an attorney is what I thought I was going to do. And it was like, oh, you're getting ready to get moved all the way across the other side of the globe. And so, but I use that as an opportunity to identify what my strengths were. So sometimes you have to take those obstacles and face them head on, because it may be leading you to something that you truly may want to do or want to accomplish, or it may be telling you that you're not in the right space and you need to walk away from something. So we have to go into obstacles with an open mind and with some clarity, and not just kind of shrug it off and feel that, because the obstacle approach that you can't overcome it. Because I think we can overcome most things if we put our minds to it.
And how can anyone follow or support your organization?
Yeah, so you can follow Stella's Girls on all social media. So that's going to be Facebook, X, formerly known as Twitter, Instagram. It's all at Stella's Girls, and that's STELLAS, girls with an S. And then our website is also stellasgirls.org.
Thank you for watching. Please go to YHELPnow.com and follow at YHELPNow for mental health and life skill resources. Thank you.
Thank you.